You are listening to The Tarot Diagnosis. I'm your host, Shannon. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, and I also happen to have a love for tarot. Each episode, I invite you to reflect with me as I work to demystify the tarot and the human experience, all while exploring tarot's connection to mental and emotional health. While this podcast may feel therapeutic, it is not meant to take the place of psychotherapy. So grab your cards and join me as I work to create a pathway to better understand ourselves and those around us. I've been noticing an uptick in my practice lately of folks who are experiencing some significant discomfort related to people-pleasing tendencies. So I found myself doing a lot of psychoeducation over the last few months on what it means to exist within that sphere of people-pleasing. And I realized I needed to talk about it on the podcast, especially because there's plenty of cards that I think embody the overall people-pleasing experience. So bear with me because I do want to spend some time giving an overview of what people-pleasing is versus what we kind of want to believe it is. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to talk tarot and work through a spread together. So the term people-pleasing has become kind of an interesting label, a shorthand way for us to identify kind of characteristics of ourselves or others, because on the surface, it's a descriptor of being kind and selfless. Because, and actually what's interesting is if you think about it, like if we're talking about it as a label and this idea as being used as a descriptor, we tend to associate it with like a virtue, and it becomes synonymous with things like someone being empathetic and warm and a good person. And also a lot of us in helping professions, healing roles, we tend to wear this label with kind of like a mix of pride and exhaustion, because being a people pleaser is inherently exhausting, and yet it is often a descriptor that we just honor and acknowledge pridefully. You know, think about how when someone, it's so quick for us to say, I'm a people pleaser. I just like to make other people happy. But what's so fascinating is underneath that kind of socially acceptable label is something so much more psychologically and emotionally complex. Because when we look at people pleasing through a psychological and really honestly a trauma-informed lens, we start to realize that it's not this harmless personality trait, but it's actually a survival skill that's been learned and has been so finely tuned over the years. And it's been built on a sense of fear, a deep need to feel safe, and a strong urge to manage and control our environment and the people in that environment and their emotions so that we do feel safe. So if we're looking at this from a developmental standpoint, you know, we now know that people pleasing is this coping strategy. And this coping strategy is developed when we, especially as children, we find ourselves in spaces or environments where our internal kind of emotional sense of safety becomes contingent upon whether or not the people around us feel okay, are calm, and are happy. So in families, this might look like being in an environment that was highly volatile, very conflict heavy, very inconsistent, not being able to kind of predict how a parent or caregiver is going to show up. Are they going to be in a good mood today? Are they going to be in a bad mood today? If there was a lot of emotional neglect, for example, children in this stage start to learn that peace and safety need to be protected, and that is not, peace and safety aren't something that is just inherent or something that they can rely on experiencing regularly. So then they become so in tune with the mood shifts of their caregivers. They start to really zoom in on and discover and pinpoint any subtle change in a caregiver's tone, their expression, their body language, just energy, how they're shifting or moving about the room, how they're engaging with them. And, something that, might hurt a little bit to hear this is what actually looks deeply like deep empathic abilities in adulthood really began as hypervigilance in childhood. And this is something that's really fascinating because a moment ago I was talking about how it's so easy for us to kind of wear this label of a people pleaser as a badge of honor. And so many of us also wear the label of, empathic healer, for example, as a badge of honor without truly understanding where that sense of empathic ability comes from. And it really stems from hypervigilance. It's the nervous system's way of scanning for danger. And like I mentioned earlier, that ability to scan becomes so finely tuned, often over decades, that now it feels like what a complete stranger is thinking or feeling just being near them. And I don't want to discredit this experience because I have always identified with this. I mean, a lot of the people I surround myself with do as well. It's like when you meet someone for the first time and you just have this, deep sensation that something is off. Or when you meet someone and you feel safe around them, it's kind of like a superpower in some ways. But I think the difference here is how we talk about and honor, acknowledge and integrate that, and knowing where it truly came from. This skill isn't often just, some magical ability. It is something that likely stemmed from having to be in survival mode in childhood. We can also talk about this through the lens of the fawn response, which is another kind of survival pattern behavioral experience where we seek safety through compliance, through appeasement and caretaking. And the fawn response is actually an extension of fight, flight, or freeze, which, I'm sure we're all familiar with. We hear like fight or flight response. That's the most common. And then we hear fight, flight, or freeze. And fawn is actually the fourth component there. And, when we stop at just fight, flight, or freeze, we lose this people-pleasing component because the logic behind fawning and people-pleasing is, okay, well, if everyone else is okay, then I'm okay. And over time, this starts to become automatic and shapes our personality. And by shaping our personality then becomes kind of like organized or centralized around this idea that we need to maintain the happiness and the contentment and the harmony of others in order for us to feel that. So when someone calls themselves a people pleaser, or when we call ourselves a people pleaser, it's important that we understand why we're saying that or where that's coming from, because at its core, it's about having learned that in order to feel safe or just exist in a way that doesn't feel dysregulated, then it's our responsibility to anticipate. So not even just smooth things over, but actually anticipate potential conflict or potential bad mood before it even happens, so that we can make sure that the people around us feel content, so then we will feel content. So to take this a couple steps further, we have to peel back some layers on people pleasing and look at it a bit deeper than how we have been looking at it, because the unfortunate reality is that there's a paradox here, because people pleasing is actually a form of control. And we can even look at this through the lens of shadow work, where the shadow of people pleasing is actually contained within this space of manipulation and control. Because while people pleasing often looks like accommodation, making people feel good, making sure everyone else is happy, the real motivation goes back to what I've been explaining so far about this need to feel safe. And we feel safe by controlling how other people are feeling. So, in a sense, we are working really hard to control how other people are experiencing their life. I do think it's important, though, to remember that this level of emotional manipulation or emotional control is never coming from a place of malice. This isn't the type of control that is rooted in ill intent. It's the type of control that's rooted in anxiety, self-sacrificing tendencies, and survival mode. Because when someone's people pleasing, if we are a people pleaser, it's rare that we are trying to control the situation because we want to dominate the situation. In the context of people pleasing, the control exists in order to accommodate. So actually, to expand on last week's episode, the work of psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott, who last week I spoke about his work in developmental psychology, especially as it relates to transitional objects and how tarot functions as a transitional object. Winnicott actually also spoke about this concept of the false self, which he basically said it's a version of ourselves that learns to suppress any sort of authentic feelings or needs in order to continue to stay connected with a caregiver. And this is very similar to the experience of people pleasing as it begins to develop in childhood, because when a child realizes that love or approval depends on behaving a certain way, the child then begins to present or display the parts of themselves that feel acceptable. And so then over time, this is basically masking behavior, that masking becomes second nature. And now it's become a survival mechanism that just we feel keeps our relationships stable. But the problem is that masking ends up leaving us feeling unseen, unsatisfied, empty. And it's the same with people pleasing. Those sensations exist there too, because we're putting so much time and energy into making sure everyone else feels okay that we're left feeling depleted. We're left feeling like we're not really being seen or we're not being taken care of. And, what we forget or don't realize is in that kind of like self-sacrificial space, we're also kind of inadvertently telling people that we don't need them. We don't realize we're teaching other people how to treat us. But, the reality is like we do need them. We need that same level of care. In fact, we probably might need them more than they need us at this point. So in this sense, the people pleaser's constant focus on others becomes both their sense of safety and their sense of suffering, because it protects them from something, but it also distances them from a sense of authenticity and true connection. Okay, now that I've kind of given you an entire, very brief, rapid fire spiel on people pleasing, I do want to bring tarot into the mix now. What's exciting about looking at tarot through a people-pleasing lens is that tarot offers us this imagery, this kind of symbolic framework of both behavior and emotion and inherent imbalances that exist within people-pleasing. We can see play out in the cards as well, especially when we think about them in their upright and reversed positions. So keep all of that in mind when you're pulling cards and thinking about people pleasing. So what I decided to do was go through the entire deck and pick out cards that I think could represent people pleasing. And this could be, again, like behaviorally or emotionally. So I did this as kind of a personal exercise pretty quickly, in the same way that I would maybe do a free writing exercise. So if you're familiar with free writing, The concept is, you have an experience or a feeling or idea or even a dream in mind that you're thinking about or struggling with or feel stuck in, and you just start writing. You don't judge yourself. It could not make sense. And you just keep going. So I kind of did that, a version of that with the cards. I just started going through the deck, and the moment I had a feeling of a people pleasing tendency with a card, I set it aside. And I didn't judge myself, although I did catch myself judging myself a couple times. There was a couple cards that even when I was going through the deck, I pulled them out and then I was like, no, why would that be people pleasing? And then I got in my head and I was like, oh, people are going to be listening to this and what the hell does she mean that card represents people pleasing? And I was like, they're going to judge me. And then I found myself putting the card back. And then I was like, wait, no, I can't do that. So then I put the card back in the people pleasing pile. And so, yeah, that was an interesting experience that I also encourage you all to do, to see what comes up when you're going through the deck, especially as it relates to people pleasing. And yeah, I would love to kind of compare what you chose versus what I chose, or what I didn't choose that you did, because we all have our own unique relationship with the cards. So keep that in mind. So I'm just going to kind of rapid fire go through the list of cards that I chose. And then I'm just going to give a brief kind of, again, kind of free association response or interpretation of the card, and which might help justify why I chose it. So the cards I chose were kind of in order: the Lovers, Empress, Magician, Devil, pretty much all the Queens, especially reversed, Two of Cups, Two of Pentacles, Three of Swords, Three of Cups, Three of Pentacles, Four of Cups, Six of Cups, Six of Pentacles, Ten of Swords, Ten of Wands. I did find it interesting that I grabbed all the threes except the Three of Wands. So that was interesting to me. I might spend some time with that and figure out why. But let's start at the top, and I'll just kind of rapid fire explain why I chose these. So for me, when I was going through the deck and I saw the Lovers, this very much felt kind of inner conflict between, because when I think of the Lovers, I think of authenticity with the self. I know a lot of people might think of actual relationships or choice. But in this case, I think that I was leaning more towards authenticity, and you can't really fully be yourself or let yourself be seen when you're existing in a people pleaser mindset. And then the Empress, I felt totally self-explanatory, definitely nurturing others before nurturing yourself. The Magician, inherently, when I think of it through a shadow work lens, just is the epitome of manipulation from a shadow work perspective. And we know that people pleasing is rooted in trying to manipulate a situation. The Devil, also, I feel pretty self-explanatory. There's, themes of enmeshment and dependency and unhelpful behavioral patterns that exist within this archetype. And then with the reversed Queens, I feel all of them could at some point represent either the ramifications of people pleasing or the act itself. So just fatigue from just overextending yourself, emotionally, mentally, and physically. Two of Cups also feels, right here. This is about connection and a relationship between two people. And when there's an imbalance there in people pleasing, there's no true connection, no true harmony. Two of Pentacles very much felt like juggling, because we think of that as the juggling card, and it's trying to keep everyone else safe and calm and content and happy. And you're kind of there just trying to balance all of that. Three of Swords, I feel is that emotional pain that comes from making sure everybody else's needs are met before your own. Three of Cups, again, maybe setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Three of Pentacles, maybe not speaking up when you're working with other people because you want other people to be happy and safe and content. So you are agreeable and, you don't maybe share your thoughts as freely as you wish you could. Four of Cups, this one, it was interesting to me. And this one also kind of made me pause for a second. But then I realized, oh, no, this absolutely could represent that, because if you're sitting under the tree and your arms are folded, this very much feels kind of self-sacrificial, right? Like, no, I am focused on these three cups in front of me. I'm not allowed to take anything else because that is not my job. I need to make sure all these cups are good before I take something. Six of Cups very much feels like, again, that early childhood stuff feels very, kind of self-explanatory. I feel like it could also represent the fawn response, that, oh, I need to appease and be compliant. Six of Pentacles is the very first card I thought of when I knew I wanted to talk about this today, because it is the give and take card. And I think that it could represent that imbalance. Ten of Swords, I feel like, is the collapse after you have been doing this for, maybe your entire life. You've abandoned yourself for so long. You've set yourself on fire for so long, and you just can't do it anymore. And then the Ten of Wands feels like just the burden of being a people pleaser. When you have, that emotional over responsibility and you're just exhausted and you feel like it's your burden to carry everybody else's stuff. So that's my rapid fire of all the cards I chose. But of course, you all are going to have your own unique relationship to the cards. So the archetypes that, I just discussed might not entirely resonate, but I think the goal here is just, that overall message, and understanding the cards through that lens will then kind of spill over into your own practice. So what the hell do we do when we start to realize oh, damn, okay, this is me. I've been existing in this space. How do I get out of it? And the whole experience of dismantling our own people-pleasing tendencies, it can feel really destabilizing, especially if we've been existing in that space for so long. And the goal here is to meet ourselves with compassion in the same way that we meet everybody else with compassion. The goal is never to just get rid of the behavior in the same way, when we're doing shadow work, we're not trying to remove or erase the shadow. That's not possible. It's to acknowledge that it exists and then figure out how to assimilate, integrate. So there's a lot of tolerance that exists within this space, developing tolerance for, your own truth, and also tolerance for just interpersonal discomfort, letting other people experience negative emotions without feeling like it's your job to step in and take it away from them or regulate them. This is very DBT coded, very dialectical behavior therapy. I talk about this in the podcast all the time. This is very rooted in distress tolerance skills. If we look at this through the lens of maybe more of a psychodynamic approach, this would maybe look more like just increasing the capacity for ambivalence. So, of course, I have a spread to go along with all of this that I would love to pull now with all of you. And as usual, please pull along with me and let me know what you end up discovering, what cards come out for you. So this is going to be a 3-card spread, and something that's important to keep in mind, and I've mentioned this before in other spreads that I've created, you don't always have to intuitively shuffle and pull a card. I mean, that's part of the fun and the magic. But especially when you're using this therapeutically, if you're working with your therapist with the cards, sometimes purposely, intentionally choosing a card is most beneficial. So I would encourage you to intentionally choose a card for the first position in the spread, and then you could shuffle and intuitively pull for the other two. So card 1 is going to represent an emotion that you're attempting to prevent or even just kind of regulate or manage by people pleasing. And then card 2 is, what would it mean to allow another person to feel disappointed, angry, or uncomfortable without you stepping in to take it away or take responsibility for it? And then card 3 is, how can you tell the difference between just being kind and giving so much that you end up losing yourself in the process? All right, so I'm going to pull now so you can kind of see what this would look like if you were also pulling or working through this. So I am back to using my tarot vintage deck. It has taken a little bit of a break over the last couple weeks, so I felt like I needed to grab it today. All right, so card one. For the sake of this podcast, I am just going to shuffle and pull for card one, but like I said, I do encourage you to intentionally choose a card. Okay, so card one. What emotion are we attempting to prevent or manage by people pleasing? And I pulled the Tower, of course. I was like, you can't get any more real than that. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you were avoiding feelings of a catastrophe, feeling unsafe, feeling surprised, shocked, caught off guard, unprepared. Oh, that's so funny. That was like a gift from tarot. Here, I'm going to make it super easy on you and give you the Tower. That's hilarious. Okay, so let's pull for card two. What would it mean to allow another person to feel disappointed or uncomfortable without stepping in and taking responsibility for it? Ooh, Two of Cups. Interesting. Okay, and these are all cards that I actually pulled or chose to represent people pleasing in general. Okay, so what would it mean to allow another person to feel disappointed? Two of Cups. Oh, you know what? This is actually really beautiful. This feels so authenticity coded right now and true connection and really being seen. So when we allow another person to feel disappointed, we allow them to exist with us as they truly are in that moment. We welcome their authenticity. We welcome their inner world. We let them know that they're not too much for us. We prove to them that we can hold space for them. We prove to them that we are a safe person for them and that they are allowed to experience a wide range of emotions. I think that this is also a reflection of just mutual respect between people and saying like, hey, yeah, you are a human having a very human, unique experience in this world just as I am. And I'm here to witness that for you. All right, interesting. Let's see what happens with card three, because both of those so far were people pleaser cards. Okay, so card three is how can I tell the difference between being kind and giving so much that I lose myself? So what's the difference there? Nine of Cups. Oh my God, I love this too, actually. This is the fulfillment card. Every time I see this card, I just think like, oh yeah, like you're like satisfaction and fulfillment. But what's interesting here is, so the question was, how can I tell the difference when I'm being kind versus when I've lost myself? So when you're being kind and you're not in people pleasing tendencies, you should feel Nine of Cups, and the other person should feel Nine of Cups as well, knowing like, oh yeah, like this feels good. I didn't self-sacrifice. I feel nourished. I feel balanced. I feel like something has been accomplished here, but not the accomplished feeling of, oh my God, I worked so hard to try and make sure everyone felt a certain way. It's when both people walk away feeling like their cups have been filled. Whereas there's an illusion in people pleasing that you're filling people's cups, and there's an illusion that your cup is also full. But again, it's an illusion. It's not real. Something that's really neat, honestly, about this whole process that we've explored so far, and I've alluded to it a little bit, but it really does mimic the process of shadow work, specifically shadow integration, through a Jungian lens. The whole the people pleaser aspect of us, that's a part of our psyche that does require acknowledgement and integration. It's a part that developed for a reason. It's not just going to disappear. And we need to honor that it existed in order to keep us safe, especially in environments where we inherently felt unsafe. And, the task of shadow work is to meet those parts of ourselves with a sense of curiosity and compassion so that then we can find and implement new ways to connect not only to our true authentic selves, but also to others. And also so that we can feel kind of grounded and rooted in a sense of autonomy versus appeasement. But I think the kind of just overall or overarching idea here, though, is stepping into this process of acknowledging people-pleasing tendencies, really looking at where it stems from and how it shows up for us, allows us to engage with others from more of a grounded and authentic sense of self, and truth and connection and, satisfaction, and invites other people to coexist with us in ways that they haven't been able to coexist with us in the past. And maybe the most important component here is that coexisting with each other doesn't include abandoning ourselves in the way that people-pleasing does. Thank you so much for listening to The Tarot Diagnosis. For more tarot and mental health content, follow The Tarot Diagnosis on Instagram. You can also subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode, and sign up to receive the Tarot Diagnosis emails, where you'll have access to exclusive spreads and exciting announcements. To join an incredible community of tarot and psychology enthusiasts, join the Tarot Diagnosis membership community, The Symposium, by visiting thetarotdiagnosis.com.